Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how I painted this Grimdark Raven Guard Intercessor. A side note on the paints I used, I have listed Ultuan Gray listed from Citadel, which will work for what we're doing with the helmet, but I've already mixed my own light gray using Acrylic Pro Bold Titanium White and just a drop of black. I've never had great luck with Ultuan Gray. Is that how you pronounce it? Ultuan? Ultuan? Yeah, I know. But your results may differ from mine, but with that said, let's get started. To get started, we're going to base our model with Chaos Black, and then once dry, we're going to start basing it with AK Interactive's Black. It may seem a little redundant to put black on top of black like this, but I want to be able to control the colors I use, and if I need to go back over something, I want the black to match on this. Following the black, I'm going to start painting the light gray accents in the helmet. I have this pretty thin down. I want a smooth finish on this, so take your time and remember to do thin coats. If you don't do thin coats, it's going to be super noticeable. White creates a super weird texture sometimes, so you just want to take your time and make sure it's thinned down. Next, we're going to go in and start basing our metal elements with Iron Warriors from Citadel. I really like Iron Warriors. It goes on really smoothly and it has a really nice finish to it that I like, but you can use any kind of metal color here that you want. If you want to do gunmetal, that's fine, or aluminum, that's fine too. Just make sure you get all those small details before moving to the next step. Moving on to our browns, I like to base my leather pouches, knife sheath, and stuff like that with Rhinox hide. And then we're going to base our bird skulls with Rakarth flesh, and then the rope with Baneblade brown. The other accessories on his belt, I actually don't know what they are, the little tube canister things, I don't know. I'm going to paint those with Mephiston red. Our gold accents we're going to base with Balthazar Gold from Citadel, which is a nice darker gold that I really like. Desaturated too, it's not super pronounced, which I think works really well with this game. And then for our bolter casings inside the auto bolter, we're going to use Vallejo's Old Gold. While doing the gold, I totally forgot I missed a spot on the rifle, so just go back and use Baneblade brown to get that. After everything is based, we're just going to do a light dry brush on the black armor with Citadel's Eshin Gray. This is just to bring out the little definition on the black. Black armor can be super tricky, because I feel like if you highlight it too much, it just starts to look gray. So we're just going to start doing this a little bit, also on the gun as well, and the rifle, just to bring out a little bit more of the depth. One of the last things we're going to do before we move on to weathering is we're just going to fill in the lenses and the vents on the helmet with thinned down black. You could use Nuln Oil for this if you wanted to, but I just had my AK Interactive Black, just thinned it down with water. Just take your time, do a few coats if you need to, make sure it's nice and clean in there. Next, we're just going to go through and take a few minutes. We're going to clean up anything that might have spilled over with any of our colors. We're going to apply our decals. I use Micro Sol and Micro Set. Make sure everything's nice and dry before we move on to the next step. Next, I like to apply a matte varnish before we start any weathering. This is just to protect the model from the mineral spirits, just in case I get a little bit too aggressive with that. You should be fine. This step is optional, but I do it just in case. When it's dry, it's time to start the weathering process. Just like in my previous video, we start by stippling on with a piece of foam some Rhinox hide. Be selective, especially on the helmet, because we want a lot of that white to show through, but we want to cover the whole model with just like big chips, small chips, and everything in between to make it more realistic. Then we're going to move on to our 60-40 mix of streaking grime and mineral spirits. Make sure to cover the whole model with this and be sure to use a cheap synthetic brush. You don't want to be using your nice brushes for these next few steps with the grime and the rust effects. After an even coat is applied, I'm not going to wait for it to dry, so I'm just going to get in there with a Q-tip that's lightly dampened with mineral spirits, and I'm going to start dabbing the excess off. The more you do this, the more you get an eye for how much you need to take off, so it just takes some practice, but it leaves you with awesome results. When you're done with that, you can leave it to air dry or you can blast it with a hair dryer, but when it is dry, we're going to move on to our rust streaks. Using a cheap brush again, I'm going to start making little marks and filling in some of the recesses with the rust effect. I was pretty selective on the white with it. It really doesn't take a lot, and when it's going on white, it's really noticeable. So start with a little, then if you feel like you want to add more rust, you can just go back and add some more to get the result that you're aiming for. Once our rust is on there, take your brush, lightly dampen it with mineral spirits, and start manipulating the rust a little bit. You can use it to create streaks, push it around a little bit, whatever you want to do. If you're wondering how much mineral spirits you need to put on your brush, it's seriously not a lot. I dip my brush in it, wipe off what seems to be all of it on a paper towel, and then I start working on the model with it. After that is dry, we're going to move on to our final rust, which is our light rust wash. And we're going to just do some recess washes with this, or excuse me, some recess shading with it. Add a little to where our rust already is sitting, and then we're going to do the same process of creating streaks and manipulating it with some mineral spirits on the brush. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go in with some Eshin Gray and we're going to do some light edge highlighting and stippling to the sharpest points on the armor. I only do edge highlighting and stippling where I think the model needs it to help create definition into the shapes. Next, with Mechanicus Gray, we're going to do the same thing but on the more sharper points. You can also thin this down a little bit and create some scratches and marks on the armor as well. But with this in the next step, less is more, and it's easier to add more than trying to remove it after the fact. The last step to our edge highlighting is to get your Iron Warriors that we used before, and we're going to start using it up to finish our weathering. We're going to be bringing out some of the detail on the shoulder trim and the knife, and also just lightly dabbing it onto the raised portions of the chest and the shield on the chest where the metal would be worn down the most. Onto our leather work. With Mornfang Brown, we're going to start applying it rather roughly and thin down near the edges and highlight them with Scrag Brown to create a used and worn leather effect. Using our light gray, I went onto the helmet and chapter icon on the shoulder just to add a few marks and dings with it. It helps create some discoloration against the streaking grime, and I think it makes it look a little bit more realistic, but whether or not you want to do this step is up to you. We are nearing the end, but at this point my model had a rather satin finish to it, and I think I didn't shake one of my washes enough. So I'm just going to take some more matte varnish and apply it to where I think it needed it. But I avoided the metal colors on this pass to help those pop out in the light. The last step, I wanted to have the lenses to have a nice gloss finish to them. I like the idea of having these helmets for this chapter look like they have these black menacing eyes, and the gloss creates a finish that makes it look really nice when you're looking at it up close. And we are done. Thank you everyone for watching, and I hope you learned something new or inspired you for your own models. As I said in my previous video, this isn't the only way to paint Grimdark, and I encourage you to check out other video makers to find out what works best for you. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for future videos. I have outlines for Raptors and Necrons coming up, so come back to check those out. Thank you.